Hey, guys, welcome back to my channel. This is a story of what if Naruto trained seriously, after the Sasuke retrieval arc. After Naruto and Sasuke's fight at the Valley of the End, Naruto has an epiphany, and everything he thought about changes. Now during his training trip with Jiraya, the blonde trains like crazy, returning to the village, 2.5 years later, as a new shinobi. One who vows to protect the village even if it costs his life. However, those who knew his usual nature wished he didn't change. Before we start, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, it means a lot to me, and check the description for the creator of this great fanfic. Now let's start the story. Author note: just as I expected, everyone voted in favor of another chapter of regret. Speaking the truth, I was thinking of doing the fight last chapter, but it would be too long and tiring to read. Most of you, though, assured me that Killer B, with his experience and full control over his demon, could easily wipe the floor with our Chunin hero. And while I'm not saying what I have planned for this fight, I find that said way of thinking doesn't reflect the series at all. Excluding some obvious cases like Orochimaru or the cages, experience alone can't be counted as an advantage. Itachi Uchiha could easily kick Orochimaru's ass with just his Sharingan, and he was more or less 40 years younger than the Sannin. Also, full control of his Biju can only take you so far. If not, then Akatsuki won't be able to capture almost all of the Jinchurikis. Once more, I'm not saying that Killer B will lose to Naruto. I'm not saying that he will win, as well. Check it out, Chapter 15, Battle of Titans. As soon as Kakashi accepted the duel, the Raikage smiled and called one of his Anbis to come forward. It was the same shinobi that escorted Kakashi's team towards the Raikage's office as he appeared from a small lightning current and kneeled in front of his master. "What can I do for you, Raikage-sama? Go call my brother and tell him to meet me in 2 hours at the Hatsushinai no Tanama, Endless Valley. That place will be perfect for a battle between Jinchurikis. Please tell him everything that was discussed here." The Anbu, if possible, kneeled some more, before he vanished just as the Raikage started addressing the team from Konoha. "This place I picked for the battle is quite fitting, because of the lack of possible accidents happening because of the fight. If you boy are anything like my brother, then chances are that if the battle were to happen close to the village, I'd have to spend quite a lot of money and resources, rebuilding this village. This place I've chosen is a clean field filled with small mountains, perfect for a battle of the magnitude I'm expecting." Kakashi nodded as he somehow knew that they were supposed to be following the Raikage himself towards the location, hence why he didn't ask anything. The huge man got up from his desk and walked towards the door, being followed by 2 new Anbis that appeared out of nowhere. Team Kakashi followed suit as Naruto and Kakashi started a discussion with one another. Kakashi knew next to nothing about the Raikage's brother, hence why he couldn't aid Naruto in terms of any prior information. He knew, though, that the man was a seasoned Junin of Kumogakure and quite possibly, has as much experience as Kakashi himself in terms of shinobi skills. He debated with himself, if letting Naruto fight the 8-tailed Jinchuriki was such a good idea. He wondered if perhaps he would be a more suitable fighter to represent Konoha, more specifically, the village's strength, which would convince the Raikage into accepting the info on Akatsuki. Another thing that worked against him at the moment was his lack of information regarding Naruto's current skills, something he loathed now more than ever. The blonde turned out to be as mysterious as his own sensei, and Kakashi never thought he would feel this way. From what he so far knew, Naruto had mastery over water and wind ninjutsu, as well as quite a proficiency in bojutsu. He could use up to 2 taels worth of the Kyuubi's chakra without losing his focus, but outside of that, nothing more. And he somehow knew that Naruto barely scratched the surface of what he could do. At least, that's what he presumed, seeing as Naruto was trained by a Sannin. What are you thinking, Naruto? Another thing that he loathed right now was being unable to read Naruto's mind like he used to in the past. I'm trying to predict the 8-tailed Jinchuriki's skills. I bet he probably has mastery over Raiden ninjutsu, being a Kumo shinobi. If that's true, then my Fuden will have the advantage. I know that he is your age Kakashi-sensei, so he must be twice as experienced as me. Not to mention that like me, chakra won't be an issue for him, meaning that this fight could take quite a while to finish. Anything more than this would be speculating, and that is not advisable, seeing who I'm up against. Who's to say I'm not going to fight against the demon, in control of his body? Also, if he, perhaps, had more control over his demon than I do. We'll have to see the man first, before making any more conclusions. Kakashi listened to the blonde the entire time without even correcting his analysis. His only visible eye looked aloof to the situation, but on the inside, he took everything the blonde said and thought it to be correct. When it came to Jinchurikis, he guessed that Naruto had more experience, seeing as he fought against Gaara 4 years ago. Suddenly, he felt more confident in his students' chances of winning. The rest of the team remained silent, though, as they followed the wreckage throughout the crowded streets of Kumogakure. Quite soon, they would have to travel throughout the mountains as the fight would occur far from the village. Sakura looked at her teammate with worried eyes as she pondered on what she knew about the ninja from Kumogakure. The village itself wasn't discussed with the Lady Hokage. In fact, she remembered hearing the village's name only 2 times, with the first being Kumo's early attempt in gathering the Byakugan by kidnapping Hinata a long time ago. The other happened when a missing nin from Kumo was caught trespassing within Konoha's walls once. Besides these 2 times, she didn't know much about the hidden village. Suddenly, she felt useless for not being able to help her teammate. She settled, then, in hearing the conversation between Naruto and Kakashi. Naruto, even if this battle represents a show-off of Konoha's skills, don't forget that your goal is to beat your opponent. Therefore, don't show your techniques ahead of time and try to gauge his skills before devising a plan of battle. I trust that Jiraya taught you well, in studying your opponent. Kakashi reasoned that the blonde was as ready as he would ever be against Kumo's 8-tailed Jinchuriki. He only hoped that Naruto knew some bits of information before acting rashly. This was the last habit that Kakashi believed was still present in Naruto's character. It somewhat unnerved him when Naruto smirked at him, instead of acting insulted like he did before. You worry too much, Kakashi-sensei. We have yet to arrive at the location and see my opponent. We can gather a lot of information even before the fight begins. Ero-sensei did teach me a lot about studying the adversary. The silver-haired Junin nodded when the wreckage stopped in front of them. From this point forward, we'll travel throughout the mountains. The valley is 10 miles from our position. The entire trip took no more than half an hour, before the team entered the place known as Infinite Valley, according to the wreckage. Its name sure gave the location credit. It was a plain field surrounded by mountains, and because of the horizon no one could see the end of the valley. Indeed, it would be a perfect battlefield for 2 shinobi to waste their never-ending chakra capacity. Clearly, the wreckage didn't wish to see any of the Jinchurikis worried about destroying anything. As they ran throughout the clearing, a large rock started to appear in the middle of the field. As the group reached the rock, they could spot what appeared to be 2 human beings standing on top of it. One was the Anbu that left the wreckage's office. The other one, who everyone assumed to be the 8-tailed Jinchuriki, was a rather interesting sight. Both his skin and hair color were similar with the wreckage's, proving their relationship as brothers. The man known as Kurabi wore dark cargo pants and a white Kumo Junin vest and white boots. What caught Naruto's eye the most was the 7 scabbards beginning on his back and ending on Kurabi's waist. Naruto knew it was common for ninjas to fight with 2 swords at a time, but he never knew people could use 7 swords at the same time. He knew that, should the need arise, he'd need to find a way to get rid of the swords. It's not like he can position all 8 swords without wasting some time, and Naruto would have to capitalize on that. When they all landed on top of the rock, Kurabi looked at Naruto and immediately began some kind of dance, flipping his arms in an awkward manner, while greeting Naruto again in an awkward manner. Hey ho, 9-0, afterward, he showed his fist to Naruto, who for his part looked at the man like he was crazy. He actually didn't know the man's mannerisms, but at least he did what Kurabi wanted and greeted him with his fist as well. Kurabi seemed to like this, if the broad smile on his face was any indication. Naruto could feel the comforting aura that exuded from this man, and he couldn't help but smile at him in return. It was a rather uncommon sight between past enemies, Kumo and Konoha, to simply bump fists as if they were best friends with each other. Since both were Jinchurikis, everyone guessed that a bond was formed between them where words mattered very little. It was the same when Naruto met Gaara and they bonded. Kurabi, the wreckage said, interrupting the bonding moment between perhaps the strongest Jinchurikis in existence, according to the tales, at least. As I trust my Anbu explained to you, Konohagakure came forward with information on some new organization named Akatsuki that is after the tailed beasts. I proposed a duel between you and this kid, so I can see with my eyes Konoha's strength. I trust that you will carry Kumo's strength and show this brat how a true Jinchuriki fights. The jab was of course meant to affect Naruto, destabilizing him prior to the fight. But the blonde just smirked and, once more, extended his fist to Kurabi. Let's have a good match, Kurabi-san. Let the best Jinchuriki win. Kurabi once more smiled at the blonde and met his fist with a smile on his face. Kakashi was silent the entire time, but he was smiling at his student behind the mask. He could see both tailed beasts staring at one another from behind their respective hosts. He knew next to nothing about the Hachibi, but he guessed that it must have the same ability as the Kyuubi, at least where the host was concerned, vast amounts of chakra. He also spotted the swords and was amazed that he could control 8 at the same time. It would be quite a show, he thought. Both Jinchurikis jumped from the rock towards the plain field below as they stared at one another for some time. Suddenly, and much to the Raikage's dismay, his brother started dancing around, while rapping. I've got spare power and my appeal is glowing. 8 tails the bridge, Kurabi, that's me. Yeah. It was the last word that came from his mouth, before he vanished towards Naruto with speeds that far surpassed the Chunins. As soon as he was within reach of the blonde to strike, though, something slowed him down, allowing Naruto to see the movements and block the strike accordingly. The blonde followed with a sequence of his own punches, but Kurabi blocked them without much trouble. Kurabi blocked both of Naruto's punches, before holding one of his wrists and using the other arm to punch Naruto in the face. At the last moment, though, the blonde used a quick kawarimi with a stone nearby and appeared behind Kurabi, attempting to aim a straight kick on his opponent's head. Kurabi barely managed to block the kick, a bit disoriented because of the smoke generated by the replacement technique. Naruto, though, managed to hold the man in place as he made a single cage bunshin that appeared behind Kurabi and managed to land a strong chakra-induced punch at his stomach. Kurabi's feet were dragged a considerable distance, allowing space for Naruto to make an attack of his own. Quickly unleashing 4 shurikens from his vest, he threw them at Kurabi, before making a brief sequence of hand seals. Futen Repusho, wind release. Gale wind palm technique. The shurikens doubled in speed, forcing Kurabi to use chakra through his legs to dodge them. Because of the close proximity, he managed to dodge 3 with the 4 causing a considerable slash on his right arm. Showing that he wasn't fazed by the wound, Kurabi charged once more, this time, grabbing a kunai and charging it with lightning chakra, much to Kakashi's surprise, seeing as the level of lightning manipulation needed for such an attack would be tremendous. He doubted if he could accomplish something like this. Just when Kurabi was with striking distance once more, the same propelling force slowed him down, allowing Naruto to dodge his movements, long enough to manipulate the air around himself and form a small wind barrier. Eventually, he pumped a little more chakra into the air, further increasing the velocity of nature. By this time, Kurabi was captured by the wind and couldn't do anything as Naruto finished a new sequence of hand seals. Futen Saraisu no Tatsumaki, wind release. Slicing tornado technique. It was an assassination technique and one of the deadliest in his arsenal, but he knew soon enough that the man wouldn't be fazed by such an open act of hostility. The log sliced in front of him showed him that Kurabi was just messing with him. Sure enough, his opponent appeared a few meters behind his earlier position with a smile on his face, while crossing his arms. The smile on his face showed that he was having fun. Inside, he at least knew that Kyuubi Jinchuriki's main skill was with wind techniques. Kurabi admitted that he didn't have much experience against wind users as he happened to be a lightning user. Ninjutsu wouldn't be his choice of action, then. The wound caused by the Repusho technique was already healed by the Hachibi as Kurabi pondered on what to do against the Jinchuriki. He was still bothered by this invisible force that seemed to slow him down for enough time, which allowed Naruto to follow his movements. Back at the audience, the Raikage saw every move taken and frankly wasn't very impressed with the blonde's abilities so far. He snorted and turned to Kakashi, who, as always, looked like he didn't give a rat's ass about anything. I'd say so far, your Jinchuriki doesn't show much promise, Sharingan no Kakashi. I expected much from someone who was trained by both you and the Sannin Jiraya. If Kakashi was surprised that the Raikage knew that, he didn't show it, but he had faith that Naruto still had a lot more to show. He knew what Naruto was doing as he remembered the time when his team traveled to Sunagakure prior to them rescuing Gaara. He also knew that Naruto's opponent was perplexed as to the actual cause. The thing about wind is that is unpredictable and Kakashi couldn't find a more suitable shinobi to grasp the true behavior of said force of nature. The fight has barely begun. Raikage-sama and Kurabi already had to resort to a quick kawarimi to escape Naruto's jutsu. From my perspective, I'd say that your brother doesn't show much promise as well. Few had the audacity of turning the game on a cage and the man just settled to observe the fight without throwing more comments. Naruto x Kurabi suddenly started dancing one more time, while rapping. Hey ho, 9-0, you got some nice moves, now let me show what I, 8-0 can do, he screamed in victory once more before charging once more at Naruto. Picking a great deal of shurikens, he charged them with lightning chakra and threw them all together at the blonde while at the same time charging with the intent to land a powerful hit on Naruto. Unfortunately for Naruto, he couldn't dodge the incoming projectiles, while at the same time follow his opponent's moves. He managed to dodge the shurikens and was about to lift his arm to block Kurabi's incoming punch. The man smiled as he punched Naruto's arm, thus taking it off the way, while flipping his entire body and landing a fierce flying kick that hit Naruto straight on his chest. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki was sent flying, while Kurabi followed to the blonde's destination. Once Naruto was reached, Kurabi tried continuing the blow with a knee uppercut, but once more, the strange force slowed his movements, allowing the blonde to stop his knee and get away from the attack range. He took his bow staff in less than a second and managed to land a powerful hit on Kurabi's side stomach, followed by a two-hit sequence that finished with him using the tip of the staff and connected with Kurabi's upper chest, taking some air out of him as he was sent flying as well. Immediately, searching for an advantage, Naruto quickly reached for a scroll inside his vest. After opening, he threw it on the ground and stepped right on the kanji sign. Suddenly, water started pouring from within the seal, as Naruto threw his bow staff to the air, while performing some hand seals. Suiten Suiryuden no Jutsu, water release, water dragon projectile technique. The water below him transformed into a gigantic creature of water as it charged hungrily at Kurabi. The attack surprised the eight-tailed Jinchuriki, seeing as this region didn't have a nearby water source for a jutsu of this caliber. Nevertheless, he supposed it was enough playing around. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki proved that he couldn't be underestimated. If the little dude was this skilled without his biju, Kurabi wondered what he could do once by the Kyuubi chakra's influence. Focusing a bit of the Hachibi's chakra, Kurabi crossed his arms while the creature of water approached his position. Suddenly, what appeared to be two tentacles coming from his back. The extra pair of limbs destroyed the water dragon technique, much to Naruto's newfound interest. The tentacles must be a part of the Hachibi and Kurabi managed to use it. He wondered if he could materialize Kyuubi's tails as well. Kurabi just walked towards Naruto. I think we're done warming up. Hey 9-0, I will play with you baby. Kurabi used his right hand and threw two swords up in the air, followed by the rest, in order to position them according to this style. Naruto was waiting for this and quickly managed a quick sequence of hand seals, once more using the Repusho technique. He managed to divert his technique to the falling swords. And just like he expected, with his technique, it ended up propelling his opponent's swords far away from the battlefield, leaving a shocked Kurabi with only 2 of the 7 initial swords. Naruto smirked at his plan and grabbed his bow staff once more. Sorry about that Kurabi-san, I just don't have the skill to fight against 7 swords at the same time. I hope you don't mind fighting with 2, instead. A great distance away, the Raikage was suddenly pissed at his brother's stupid actions. He always told him to learn a new way of positioning his swords without throwing all of them up in the air like that. Strangely, so far, only the Kyuubi Jinchuriki sought to take advantage of the situation, but still. Back to the fight in hand, Kurabi smirked and positioned himself in a battle stance holding his 2 swords. Naruto could see that the swords were glowing with blue energy, just like the kunai was. He did the same with his bow staff, focusing wind chakra through it, hardening the metal in order to face Kurabi's twin sword style. He knew that if the man knew how to use 7 swords, he wouldn't have much trouble using 2. At least, Naruto's eyes could follow 2 swords better than 7. Before he could ponder much longer, Kurabi vanished from his position, surprising the blonde as he positioned his bow staff in order to protect his entire body. Just when the Hachibi Jinchuriki was inches from attacking, though, he stopped and looked at the blonde with strange interest. Naruto wondered what just happened, before the man smiled. You using wind chakra to restrain my movements, aren't ya? Kurabi asked, before Naruto's eyes widened upon being caught. It didn't last long, though, as he smiled and nodded. I was hoping to fool you a bit longer, guess you couldn't be fooled like the others. Their position wasn't so far from the rock, which allowed everyone to hear Kurabi's discovery. The Raikage widened his eyes, finding respect for the Kyuubi Jinchuriki for his ability with wind chakra. Expelling wind chakra throughout his body like that, Naruto managed to slow down the enemy's movement so that it would appear that the fight was even, if his opponent was faster than him. But if the Kyuubi Jinchuriki knew how to do this, then he could easily use this skill to increase his own speed. It must be another secret ability he plans to use against the Raikage's brother. Turning to Kakashi, he now knew why the man placed so much confidence in a teenager. Naruto may not possess experience, but he had skills to back him up. Back to the fight, the two Jinchurikis were smiling at each other. Quite the skill you have there, 9-0. Thank you, however just because you figured out what I did, it doesn't mean you found out everything there is to know about me. Wind chakra is considered the most powerful and most unpredictable of all elements for a reason. Naruto said, before he attacked Kurabi using his bow staff. He loaded the staff with wind chakra and aimed it towards Kurabi's shoulder, in order to break some bones. The man, though, managed to block the attack. He was surprised, once more, when Naruto started moving faster all of a sudden. His movements forced Kurabi to increase the rhythm as now the battle was transformed into a close-ranged one. Their speeds were faster than Kakashi could see, hence why he used his Sharingan to follow. Sakura was lost since the beginning of the fight and Yamato was having trouble like Kakashi did without his Sharingan. The Raikage, being used to similar speeds, could follow the match. He smirked, knowing that his assumptions about Naruto were correct. Not only can the boy use wind chakra to restrain the opponent's movements, but also to increase his speed by lowering the air resistance around him. The boy was trained well, the Raikage reasoned. The two Jinchuriki were at each other, with both precise and fast moves. No one could tell who was winning, because for every hit Naruto landed with his bow staff, Kurabi managed to scratch Naruto's skin as well. It soon became apparent that if nothing changed, then either Kurabi's bones would crack under the pressure of Naruto's powerful wind blows or Naruto would lose more blood than what was safe. Seeing as both managed to speak freely with their bijouis allowed them to realize the consequences of keeping this up. Both backed away and Naruto used the momentary distance to make a long series of hand seals for a very powerful technique of his. Futen Atsugai wind technique. Pressure damage technique. Suddenly, around his body, a dome of wind was created as it expanded towards Kurabi and the others, obliterating everything in its radius. The technique even reached the rock, forcing the people on top of it to scatter as to not get caught. When the technique was over, Naruto saw that Kurabi was nowhere to be seen. His eye wandered through every possible direction as he positioned his bow staff in a defensive position in case Kurabi appeared with a surprise attack. Little did he know, though, that the Hachibi Jinchuriki took advantage of the wide field and created a very long distance, both in order to escape from Naruto's technique and prepare for a ninjutsu. Said jutsu required a long series of hand seals and a few minutes of concentration, thus Kurabi knew that Naruto would charge once he feels the chakra. The distance would serve to give him time for his, or rather Kumogakure's latest triumph. Actually, besides him only his brother could perform the technique since the chakra capacity required for it is quite large. Kurabi was having a blast so far and he wasn't even sad that he couldn't use his sword style. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki was full of surprises, he reasoned. He began with the series of hand seals, while molding a great amount of chakra. Suddenly, Naruto and the others felt the sudden spike in chakra. Immediately, the blonde charged towards the location where Kurabi was, only to see him holding the dragon seal. Raiden Raryuden no Jutsu lightning release. Lightning dragon projectile technique. His entire body was engulfed in electricity, as the creature appeared on top of his head. Kurabi was increasing the chakra necessary for the technique. Naruto could see that the creature was growing in size until it easily reached 10 meters high. The blonde didn't even try to see the creature's length as he began doing hand seals. He doubted that said technique would be enough to stop Kurabi's attack, but it was his only choice at the moment. He didn't find anything to replace himself with, nor would it do any good to summon Kage Bunshin to be used as replacement. The amount of energy gathered by the Hachibi Jinchuriki would surely cause a lot of damage to this field. The least he could do was to block the attack with one of his techniques and hope for the best. As soon as the beast's creation was finalized, Kurabi smirked at the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and unleashed his creation. It was at this time that the wind around Naruto increased in speed. Futen K's notate wind release. Wind shield technique. As soon as the lightning monster reached Naruto, an amazing tornado circled around him. The creature collided with the wind barrier and an explosion soon followed, which could be seen from a long distance. The audience was shocked at the bright flash of light that engulfed them, before the land started to disintegrate in front of them. The Raikage and the Anbu was long gone from the paw of destruction and the others would too if Sakura decided to trust her instincts and get the hell away from there. Both Kakashi and Yamato moved quickly to save her. Yamato used a simple earth wall in front of Sakura while Kakashi grabbed her and got all of the way. The wall wasn't enough to stop the path of destruction, but at least allowed them time to save the Chunin. The debris caused by the attack was enough to alter the landscape a bit. Kurabi smirked upon seeing the result of his jutsu, before doing a victory dance, seeing as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki was nowhere to be seen. Much to his momentary dismay, but happiness, a pile of rocks was pushed away, revealing a rather bruised Naruto. His clothes were a rag and one side of his vest was missing. The blonde, for his part, wondered what would have happened to him if he hadn't lifted the wind barrier. I applaud you for escaping alive from Da Bomb 9-0, but from here on out, it's time for the 8-0. Naruto saw the man using the demon's chakras since the red cloak surrounded him. He could see 8 tails behind him and was marveled at the man for his control over the beast. Suddenly, without warning, the Hachibi Jinchuriki vanished from sight and landed a powerful strike at Naruto's chest, which opened a big hole on his chest. His screaming echoed throughout the valley, which worried Kakashi, Sakura and Yamato. The Raikage, though, smirked upon seeing the Rariato technique that he invented being used by his brother. With Jiraiya, the little toad stopped jumping as soon as he saw Orochimaru and Kabuto entering the cave. It suddenly opened his mouth, allowing the perverted Sannin to emerge. He appreciated the toad's help and looked at the seemingly empty cave in front of him. It was strange and totally against Orochimaru's profile. Normally, every base had its guards blocking the entrance, but now he couldn't see anything. It could easily be a trap, he reasoned. One would enter the cave, only to be slaughtered by hidden traps or even hidden shinobi. In any case, Jiraiya wouldn't need to worry. However, his mission didn't involve being caught. Doing a couple hand seals, he slammed his right hand on the ground, until a considerably sized hole was created, allowing him to enter the base from below the ground. It didn't take 5 minutes before he found an entrance he could use. Once inside the base, he walked towards the wall of the empty room and looked around a bit. As usual, the place looked like a maze, as Orochimaru always made his base to be. Jiraiya loathed him, but he had to admit that the snake Sannin knew what he was doing. The pervert wouldn't put it past him that he would be able to accomplish his objective without resistance. Trusting that his path was clear, he laid a hand on the ground, in order to sense Sasuke's chakra. He needed to avoid both Kabuto and Orochimaru for the time being and focus on finding Sasuke's location. With Naruto just after, probably, the toughest pain Naruto endured, his consciousness was immediately transferred inside the seal as he started at the almighty figure known as Kyuubi no Yoko. He could see true displeasure looking at him from behind the cage as he knew the creature's pride was larger than its own size. The blow to its pride was probably due to his host apparently losing a battle against the Hachibi Jinchuriki. Despite knowing it was risky, the fight was going according to the blonde's plan and he now had the upper hand. I know you have a plan, brat. But if you receive any more of a beating from the Hachibi, then I'll get out of this cage and beat the shit out of you. The fox admitted that the plan was sound and he knew that if Naruto managed to complete it, then the Hachibi would be defeated, but this alone didn't satisfy the fox. The boy just smirked at his inmate and nodded. Okay fur ball, for now give me 1 tail worth of chakra. This alone will protect me from the attacks. Also with my skills in wind chakra, my speed will double. Okay brat, you have it. Kurabi stopped dancing immediately once he sensed the usage of demonic chakra in front of him. He noticed the wound on Naruto's chest healing at an impressive rate and smirked. It was time for the real battle between Jinchurikis, he reasoned. Kurabi used his superior speed and vanished, appearing behind Naruto. The blonde, for his part, used his ability with wind chakra, much stronger now with the fox's chakra, and managed to slow Kurabi's movements. Naruto used his bow staff and smashed it on Kurabi's chest. He followed with a sequence of blows, not allowing any movement in retaliation from his opponent. Getting annoyed, Kurabi focused on bursting his chakra, which managed to send Naruto flying. The blonde just used his momentum and flipped his body, before using chakra on his limbs to charge and diminishing the air resistance in front of him. His speed quadrupled and Kurabi was having trouble following. The audience was lost as well, with Kakashi being the only one, because of the Sharingan. Even then, he wondered how faster he would be once he used a third tail. As soon as he reached Kurabi's position, he tried landing a powerful bow staff strike only for Kurabi to block it and land 4 tails right on Naruto's face. The blonde smirked seeing as his chakra cloak managed to protect him. He did the same maneuver once more, this time appearing behind the Hachibi Jinchuriki, this time with a small piece of paper in his right hand to which Kurabi didn't notice. The movement was so fast but Kakashi managed to see Naruto's plan and smirked behind his mask. This fight was as good as his now. Kurabi turned and saw the blonde aiming his bow staff at his shoulder and blocked it. Out of the blue, though, he felt something weird. His chakra cloak simply vanished and he couldn't hear the Hachibi inside of him. He looked at the smirking Jinchuriki in front of him and asked what the hell happened. He could see 2 more tails growing behind Naruto and his whisker marks getting more defined. He maintained the smirk, as his canines started growing to that of a beast. His hair was even more spiked as he fell on the floor like a canine. Once the transformation was over, Naruto decided to explain. His voice came out different and everyone could feel the malevolent chakra leaking from the blonde. Training under a seal master has its perks. For instance, Sensei devised a seal that cuts the link between Jinchuriki and tailed beast. He created it in order for others to use it on me in case I ever lost control to the Kyuubi. Now that you don't have the Hachibi to protect you, it's my turn to strike. As soon as Naruto spoke, he vanished and started beating the defenseless Kurabi ruthlessly. The Raikage didn't know with whom he was angrier, his brother for falling victim to such a cheap trick or the Kyuubi Jinchuriki who right now was treating his brother like a punching bag. He was about to end the fight when Kakashi explained what Naruto was doing to Kurabi. You needn't worry about your brother Raikage-sama. I can see that Naruto isn't loading his punches with the demon chakra. However, you do well to conclude that his fight is long over and Naruto is the victor. The Raikage disguised his preoccupation for his brother with an angry snort. He was about to concede, when he felt a very familiar chakra, all of a sudden. He recognized this supreme chakra capacity anywhere. This, perhaps, is the first time he thanked the demon for his assistance. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki is quite capable Kakashi. However, he still has to win this fight against another foe. No sooner the words left his mouth than all of them saw Kurabi being transformed into the demon itself. Naruto stopped immediately as he was now face to face with the 8-tailed demon. His height was easily the same size as Shukaku, but his appearance was rather unique. It had the body of an octopus and the head of an ox. Lowering down, he stared at the altered Naruto with its stoic white eyes. You fought bravely Kyuubi Jinchuriki, but I'm afraid that I can't let you kill my host. The beast's resolve in protecting the Jinchuriki surprised Naruto and he wondered if the fox would do the same thing for him. Even the Kyuubi itself was surprised at the Hachibi for his actions. It even reminded Kyuubi of the time when Mito Uzumaki was its Jinchuriki. Standing up, the blonde smirked at the giant demon and stopped using the fox's chakra. Jiraya would like to know that the demon could overcome the seal. No need to worry Hachibi, I don't plan to harm him, hence why the blows I delivered weren't laced with the fox's chakra. My plan was merely to show Kumogakure that if I could cause this damage to him, then surely Akatsuki can as well. Truly, I envy Kurabi-san to have such a powerful and devoted partner at his side. Naruto vanished within a shunshin and appeared in front of the Raikage, who was shocked beyond words. I yield Raikage-sama, there is no way I can beat a tailed beast on my own. His response shocked Sakura and Yamato, but earned a smile of pride from Kakashi. Because of the fox's chakra, his wounds were healed but his clothes were a mess. Despite it all, Naruto showed the ability of a great shinobi. He managed to plan ahead and even admitted that he wasn't strong enough to defeat the enemy. By this time, the Hachibi vanished once more as he had to heal its host. Back to everyone, the Raikage was fixing his eyes at Naruto, trying to measure his character for a while. Such resolve, such confidence was only visible in one man and he could see his image behind Naruto as if he was alive once more. The Raikage wasn't certain that the Jinchuriki was related to this man, but he could see a great list of resemblances in both appearance and character. First, this fight was in order to see if he would accept Konoha's information about Akatsuki. He needed to see, then, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki's power, before considering whether to accept it or not. With this fight, the Raikage could see that the boy showed such promise. And to think he had yet to fully control the Kyuubi. Kakashi, I'll accept the information. However, I'd like to write a letter in reply to the Hokage. Your team is welcome to stay in the village as I prepare the reply. The Raikage was interrupted once an Anbu came out of nowhere. Raikage-sama, we spotted 2 missing nin attacking Niyugido at the sewers. Their identities are unknown, but they are wearing black cloaks with red clouds. Kakashi responded right away that Akatsuki was attacking the 2-tailed Jinchuriki. The Raikage nodded and ordered 2 squads of Anbu to follow him. Kakashi and Yamato followed him, while Sakura stayed with Naruto to heal him. As soon as the group vanished, the Hachibi Jinchuriki appeared behind him holding his head in a weak attempt to heal a nasty headache. Naruto smiled at the man, who in turn smiled back. They exchanged fists once more as Sakura settled to heal some of Naruto's less dangerous wounds. Author note. Okay, here's the end of the chapter. How do you like it? Good, bad. The best thing about the shinobi world is underestimation. A lot of ninjas get killed because they thought that their opponents didn't possess the same level of skill. However, a lot of events can happen and shinobi must take a genin as seriously as he would take a junin. You'll never know what the genin have under his sleeve. Kurabi underestimated Naruto and paid the price for it. He had to rely on his demon to win the fight. Some of you'll agree with me that, even though the Hachibi had to intervene, in the end Naruto lost the fight. I was very pleased that I was able to put everything I planned on paper. In my humble opinion, the fight was great. Lots of action in Naruto, this time, got to show more of his jutsus and forced Kurabi on the defensive. Now, the story is shortly falling into shape, following, more or less, what happened in canon, with a twist, though. The Raikage was impressed with Naruto's skill and he will see the threat of Akatsuki by himself. What will be his conclusions based on the recent events? Also, Jiraiya is about to find Uchiha Sasuke as he has a mission to complete. What does the mission entails? Jiraiya is a Sannin, but in order to get to Sasuke, he'll need to avoid Orochimaru and Kabuto's senses, as well as Sasuke himself. Will he succeed? Or he'll be caught and face all three of them at the same time? There are lots of questions left unanswered, right? Check it out next chapter. Oh, and don't forget to review. Please. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.